I'm sorry, Senator, but
it's my time, Mr. Secretary.
I'm sorry, Senator, but the data doesn't show that.
Okay. We can have a difference of opinion. The Senate
data.
There's no doubt Scott Bessent knows exactly what he's talking about. Ron Wyden learned the hard way after trying to twist the facts for show, only to be corrected repeatedly, leaving him scrambling for excuses. And today, we're covering it all. By the way, we just launched this channel, and we'll focus solely on debates. So if you believe that truth isn't partisan, hit that subscribe button, and let's jump right into it.
The Joint Committee on Taxation found that under the House bill, high earners who bring in several $1 million a year will get tax breaks of $250,000. This comes from the people that we asked to do the analysis. So if we got to make choices, who are you with? Are you with those high earners that the Joint Committee on Taxation found? Or do you think it's more important that 2 million hungry kids in America have enough to eat?
Senator, I think you're playing a game of semantics here. You're using absolute.
Well, why don't you just answer the question?
Why don't you ask an honest question?
It's Joint Committee on Taxation,
because we are talking absolutes, and the answer is percentages. With TCJA, the top 10% share of taxes went from 37% to 45%.
I asked a very simple question based on the independent scorekeepers about who you value, and you're not responding, and I guess that's your constitutional right.
That was the right answer from Scott for two simple reasons. First, Wyden never defined which income bracket he was even talking about. Second, the so-called top earners already carry most of the tax burden. If you look at the numbers, the top 5% in 2022, they paid 61% of the national total. Now, if we expand that to the top 10%, that's 72% of the total taxes the federal government collected. Like it or not, these earners are far more productive to the economy than career politicians who've never created anything outside of Washington. Plus, Ron was probably referring to the SNAP changes under the Big Beautiful Bill, which added work requirements for people to be eligible, and that was long overdue. Report after report has shown massive fraud in the program, with Cato documenting millions in stolen funds. Once Wyden realized that line of attack wasn't landing, he quickly pivoted to tariffs, and that's where things went downhill for him again. So let's take a look.
Let me move on to tariffs. So at your nomination hearing, I asked you whether Americans would pay the blanket tariffs that President Trump wanted to impose, and you said no. Now, since then, a number of analysts have said these tariffs are going to hit American families like a wrecking ball, something like $2,500 a year. Major companies like Walmart, Mattel, and Ford have all suggested they're going to need to raise consumer prices as the tariffs hit them. Some companies have already had to raise prices, like Stanley Black and Decker. So here's what you said. Nobody's making this stuff up. Here's what you said. Walmart will be absorbing some of the tariffs. Some may get passed on to consumers. Your words. So another chance on the issue. Do American consumers pay the tariffs?
Senator, you are cherry picking because Walmart makes decisions based on their customers. Two other very large retailers, and this is not an advertisement for them, Amazon and Home Depot, have chosen not to pass on tariffs.
Some of the higher costs from tariffs do get passed on to consumers. Pretending otherwise doesn't help anyone, but it's also true that this isn't universal. Not every company responds the same way. A piece by the San Francisco Federal Reserve argued that economies are dynamic and respond to changes in their environment over time, adding, businesses that import tarified goods may choose to pass only a portion of the increased cost of inputs to consumers. They absorb part of it by cutting into their own margins. Another study released by the Harvard Business School in 2021 showed that tariff pass-through at the border and stores varies widely by the product and context, meaning not all costs are fully reflected in consumer prices. Scott went on to explain to the senator why his logic is flawed, and needless to say, he didn't hold back.
There seems to be a new version of TDS, which I would call Tariff Derangement Syndrome, and many on your side seem disappointed that there is no inflation today. As a matter of fact, we saw the best inflation numbers since 2020. So there has been nothing passed on. There has been no tariff recession. So no inflation, no recession due to tariffs.
So let the record show that once again, the Secretary of Treasury doesn't think American consumers are paying the tariffs. We say to all those people who are trying to pay medical bills and food bills and the like that are still going up, they know they're paying tariffs. Let me move on to an issue.
I'm sorry, Senator, but
it's my time, Mr. Secretary.
I'm sorry, Senator, but the data doesn't show that.
Okay. We can have a difference of opinion.
Difference of data.
Scott never said American consumers aren't paying any tariff costs. His answer was far more nuanced. But Wyden did what he always does, and he twisted it to fit the narrative. And Bessent is right on the border point. There hasn't been a tariff-driven recession. If anything, the policy is doing what it was designed to do. A recent report mentioned how our trade deficit 6 months into the tariffs was the lowest since mid-2009. In numbers, the trade shortfall was just $29.4 billion for October, down 39% from the prior month. That said, the industrial reshoring the administration has promised is going slower than expected. So if that accelerates, the gains could be even stronger. But once Wyden saw that this line of attack wasn't landing either, he pivoted yet again. This time, he claimed Trump's economic policies were hurting rural health care, turning it into yet another performance.
The Senate is coping with health care choices that are enormously important. Just as a matter of your thinking, what do you think is the largest employer in rural America?
Sorry?
What do you think is the largest employer in rural America?
The largest single employer?
No, the sector.
The largest industry?
The sector, yes.
I would assume it would be agriculture.
It is rural health care. I think it is fair to say almost all of us up here, the chairman and I, for example, we have the honor to represent a big chunk of the rural West. And I want to know if you're willing to make changes so that we can protect the economic survival of these rural communities, which means their hospitals.
We are quite satisfied with the healthcare portion of this and the adjustments to Medicaid.
I would just say to colleagues, my time is up. When you're home over the break and the like, ask your rural hospitals if they're satisfied with what they're going to get in the House changes, because I think they'll tell you they feel like they're going to get hit by a wrecking ball, and that'll happen in Kansas and Oregon and all across the land. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
It's true. There is an ongoing crisis in rural hospitals, as more than 100 of them have closed over the past decade, and over 700 additional rural hospitals, which is 1/3, are at a risk of closing in the near future. But that's not just because of Big Beautiful Bill. A major factor is the fact that payments from health insurance plans are not adequate to sustain essential services in rural communities. That's the reality. It's a serious and complex problem with no easy fixes. But instead of dealing with those root causes, Ron chose to use the issue as a political prop, turning a real crisis into yet another talking point to push his agenda. Let me know in the comments your thoughts on the story. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and remember, keep thinking.